between Las Vegas and Salt Lake City?
I tried once.
What?
I tried. I was going to the Grand Canyon. Made it about 3/4 of the way.
And so you didn't get there?
No.
Okay. Okay, if you had made it all the way, James, you would have encountered a series of features such as this, where the earth has been pulled apart in that area. And if you drive across this area, literally the road follows through this. It's a ridge and valley type of thing. But in this case, the rock units have been displaced, but they haven't been overturned, they've just simply been dropped. And when you have this, you have a series of features called grabens. In the book, there's a nice job on these, so read through, and horsts. These are the features that result because of tensional stress. And again, you see this in that area. What we find grabens here in Wisconsin, the western end of Lake Superior is a graben. Between Duluth and Superior, that area is a graben. The word graben literally means grade. So it's an area that's depressed. Found only along tensional zones. Yeah, let's go into compressional zones. Oh, do we call that a normal fault, right? Stresses are which way? Coming together. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, coming together. So we'll develop earthquakes or fault lines look like this. So literally, you're displacing. This is fracturing and being displaced, pushed upward. And at this point, these are referred to as reverse faults. And they're at different angles, depending on the rock type and the amount of pressure. So they're not always straight up in the air like that, but they are really a whole series of options available as far as angles. If it's a real low angle, it's referred to as a thrust fault, and that's in the book as well. Okay, so at compressional plate boundaries, reverse faults or thrust faults. Again, at compressional plate boundaries, we have shallow, intermediate, and deep focus earthquakes. The only place you end up with all three. And finally, we have two units that slide by one another, horizontal movement. Transform plate boundary. In California, you can see where this is occurring. This is LA area. This is the rest of California. LA is gradually moving toward the northwest. As I mentioned the other day, it will be in the Aleutian Islands in 50 million years. This is referred to as a right lateral fault. Position at this point is called the fault line. If you're in California, you can follow that fault line. It's obvious where it is. Okay, the reason it's called a right lateral fault, if you were standing here by the river and you looked across the fault line, the river has appeared to be displaced in what direction as far as you're concerned? Left or right? Right. You go over on this side, You look at it here, it looks like it's been displaced to the right. So this is a right lateral fault. So it's the apparent displacement from your position. And transform faults generally show an intermediate focus. Now, what happens with transform faults and what happens in the California region? These are constantly under stress. The LA region, that's part of the Pacific Basin, constantly under stress. And if all things were slippery, this would slide right past and would have no problem. But they lock up along the fault line. Rock units get jammed in. Pressures build, and then all of a sudden the pressure is great enough, it jumps out ahead. And that's when you have the earthquake activity. But then rock units lock up again. Pressure builds, it slides ahead. Sometimes the movement is as much as 15 to 20 feet. Typically it's only a couple of feet. So the pressure currently in this area is building, and eventually, possibly within a few years, possibly a few decades, the pressure will become so great that this area is going to move, and LA is going to be in a world of hurt. You've heard it here first. Southern California will have a major earthquake. We won't tell you when, because we don't know when. I mean, that's a forecast that I know will stand up. It will happen. Less than a month ago, a bunch of seismologists, geologists that study earthquakes, were found guilty of not providing enough information to people in Italy. And they had an earthquake, people died, people lost property, so they sued the individual. They sued them in criminal court, and they were found guilty of neglect, I'm not sure what else. They're appealing, the geologists are appealing. So wait, you can't predict when these things are going to happen. I don't care what the guy says on the street corner saying the world is coming to an end. Okay, yeah, it is. When? Give me a date and I'll think you're alive. So my fearless prediction, California will have an earthquake, devastating earthquake. Thousands will die. I'm not sure. Okay, California is really in an unfortunate position. Southern California is in an unfortunate position. There's D&D from earthquakes. We all remember Japan, so let's put down tsunami. Anytime you have a large body of water next door, it's a possibility. A tsunami is nothing more than a massive shockwave. Nothing more than a massive shockwave. It works late or early. So whenever you throw a pebble into a pond of water, you've created a miniature tsunami. The only difference between that tsunami that you've created and one created by an earthquake is the amount of material that is displaced in the ocean. We're dumping millions of tons of material, and that results in a massive ripple in the water, and that tsunami out in the open ocean. Tsunami in the open ocean only looks like this. I mean, you could be out here with your fishing boat and not have much of a problem. It's when that wave comes in contact with shallow water that the problem develops. So if this is a shoreline, when the wave comes in contact with the shoreline, it's like slamming on the brakes at this end. You have all kinds of energy behind this. All of a sudden, this water is going to build up in a massive way and will come crashing down onto the shoreline. The best place to be in a tsunami is not on the shore, but out in the open ocean. Get away from